So first to start, to give a bit of an introduction about what we will be working on today. So the question we will be discussing is around how can systems mapping support the development of impactful teams? And to give a little bit of context for that, we know that organizations play an important role. They can provide products and services that can really support the well-being of societies. And the teams within those organizations are the ones that play an important role in creating those values. So we need strong teams to make that happen. But at the same time, our world is becoming more interconnected, it's becoming more complex. So this is also making the work that these teams have to carry out more complex and less predictable. And makes it even more important that teams have a strong foundation to carry out their work together in a complex environment. We observe that at the moment, there are many teams who have to waste a lot of effort and energy sailing kind of on a broken ship or a ship that is not right for their purpose. So that's what we show in this image. That was the title image for this event. We might have a slightly broken ship, so we have to waste energy on scooping out water. We might just fix the breakage with some duct tape, but it's not very sustainable, and there are things going on kind of under the waterline that are creating issues for the team. So there tends to be a tendency to address symptoms instead of the underlying causes. But what we want to do instead is to use system thinking to help us develop teams that can remain impactful on a turbulent ocean. And today we will discuss how we can go about that. And this will be a very interactive workshop. So I can briefly show you the overview. We will start with an exercise involving the iceberg. After that, we have come together for a plenary reflection. Then I will walk you through this systemic team development process that we have been working on. So this event is a cooperation between the System Innovation Amsterdam Hub and World of Minds. So the location you see with the people coming together in person, that is taking place at World of Minds. Then, we will introduce you to the systems map we have created for impactful teams, and there's an exercise around that. And then finally, there will be more quick individual exercise around setting up a roadmap to actually make improvements within this system. And finally, we will talk you through a little bit more the approach and the different tools that can be used throughout that process. But to get started, we will directly go into the first exercise. So I will first walk you through how that will work. So in the very first step, you will think about, in your own experience, what are the common issues and challenges that teams run into? So from your own experiences being part of teams, maybe being a team manager, what are common issues that you have observed? So just take 5 minutes with your breakout group together to write down everything that comes to mind on the sticky notes. Please still wait a second, don't get started yet. I will send you into breakout rooms in a moment, and then you can do that exercise together. And then after you have done that brainstorm for a couple of minutes, then the next step is to have a look at the things that you have written down, how can you sort that into this iceberg model? So what we are looking here are events, patterns, structures, and mindsets that are coming up. So to give some examples from what we have here and to explain, okay, what are these events, patterns, and structures? So for example, we have here a key team member leaves. So this is a specific event that we are observing that can have quite a big impact on the team itself. But over a longer time frame, we might observe that this is actually a pattern where this team has a relatively low retention rates, or there are more frequently people that are leaving. And maybe this is on a more structural level. We also have a lack of development opportunities for employees. And this might be one of the reasons for this low retention rate and for individual people leaving. And maybe on the level of the mindset, this is related to a lack of long-term thinking within that team. And we might also see low connectedness within the team, which also falls in the area of patterns. So once you have sorted your elements into this iceberg, then in the third step, you can also have a look at how are these aspects related to each other within the levels and also between them, and draw connection lines between the aspects to indicate that. So, for example, having a low retention rate further reduces the connectedness of the team because people are leaving, new people are coming in, and that poses a challenge for the experience of connectedness. So yeah, 3 steps, 5 minutes for the first part, and then you have 20 minutes for step 2 and 3. I will set a timer on the mirror board, so there you can see how much time you have left. And are there any questions before I send you into the breakout rooms? Yeah, Matthias?
Hi, Hannah. Do we work together to go through these through the iceberg, or should we work like individually, or how do we work as a team in the breakout rooms?
Yeah, so for the first step, you can do it like a little bit more individually. So each person for themselves can write down on the sticky notes your ideas. And then step 2 and 3, you can do that together with your group to think about, okay, is this an event? Is this a pattern? And talk each other through a little bit the ideas that you have written down and why.
Super, thank you.
Yeah. Welcome back. I am curious to just briefly hear a little bit from each group how that exercise went from them, and yeah, any insights that might have come up throughout the process. So from the first group, who would like to share a little bit how it went for them?
Could you, Kayan, please?
Group 1, Hannah? Yes?
You can go ahead. I was just telling you that you were
Okay.
still muted, but now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So we wrote as events low productivity and conflicts. We were not sure if deadlines being missed is an event or a pattern, as it could be something like frequent. I don't know if that would make it a pattern, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it happens once, then it's an event, and if it happens more frequently, then indeed you can see, okay, this is a pattern of us not reaching deadlines.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Another pattern we wrote is processes do not work constantly. We like fail to follow our own processes, and we consider it a pattern, like it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
And as structural, we have not enough resources and unrealistic expectations. We were not sure, is this a structural thing, like a project that's not well defined, like has unrealistic expectations, or it's about a mindset, like how people think, like they always think unrealistically, right?
Yeah.
So we were not sure.
Yeah, it can be a little bit of both, as you're saying. One, the mindset leading to the structure is not being set up in a clear way.
Okay. And we also wrote as mindsets fear of rejection, status quo, which we mean, what do we mean by that? Like always thinking and doing the same way. Like it's a mindset. And close to that, comfort zone, staying at the comfort zone, like not reaching for like, okay. And different expectations, which is close to unrealistic expectation, but it's different. Like people have different expectations, and we consider it a mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see you already connected that to this can cause conflicts when there are different mindsets within the group. Then that can lead to conflicts on the event level. You made that connection.
Yeah, and we used a green color to represent a positive connection. Like different expectations are causing more conflicts, not a negative. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone from the group wants to add something, but I think it's that we didn't have enough time to like establish all connections, just these three.
Yeah, no worries. Then from group number 2, who would like to share? And yeah, you don't have to go into all the details. I see you have a lot of things written down, but just some observations that you made along the way.
Yeah,
I can
think I
do
will
that.
start. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Kirill, you can go. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, as you can see, we identified quite some patterns. I think we also had some struggles figuring out whether it's an event or a pattern, but then we kind of came to the same conclusion that if it happens more often, then it's a pattern, if it's a singular event. But then it was sometimes difficult to figure out which one makes more sense. So they put them kind of on a boundary between the two.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like the pattern here is that it's easier to see patterns and maybe events, and then the more you go in depth, it's kind of difficult to come up with something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't really started with the connections. I thought we'll have more time for step 3, right? But yeah, I think that's basically it so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and indeed, then once you have observed these events and the patterns, then you can kind of do the exercise of going through them and thinking about, okay, what are the structures, what are the mindsets that are making these things happen? Then group number 3, who would like to say a few words? No volunteers so far.
Hi, I don't mind.
Go ahead.
Well, we were actually at the previous group. We only defined the events, patterns, structures, and mindsets. Some have already been mentioned. So shall I just start at the top?
Yeah, I think you don't have to walk us through the details of all the things that are there, but maybe do you have any insights on do you think doing this exercise is helpful, or any observations around that?
It's definitely helpful. It makes it very you can see where the how deep the issue is basically within the organization or within the people. And but we were still struggling on a few things, like a lack of diversity ideas in people. We put them in structure and in mindset, because my question actually is that possible? Because it's so connected. If it's not stimulated in the structure, then the mindset is also not triggered. So how does that?
Yeah, so indeed the two influence each other. So we are setting up the structures based on the mindsets we have. But of course, if we are coming into a system and structures are set up in a certain way, that is also going to influence our mindsets. So it goes both ways. And for the diversity, as you were saying, for example, yeah, there is a mindset that either we appreciate that diversity is important, and then we set up the structures, we put the structures in place to make sure that we have diversity, or the other way around, yeah, we are not putting value on that, and therefore the structures are lacking.
So how and when would you use it if you were to do this with your team?
Yeah, so I would have a look at, yeah, what are the events that are taking place, what are the patterns that we are observing, and then from there think about, okay, what are the structures that are causing this, what are the mindsets that are causing this, and yeah, what are the things that we are not happy about seeing certain patterns, and where are they coming from, and then from there, yeah, where do we need to make changes?
Yes.
And yeah, for step 3, of course, you then will also see that the patterns themselves are related and creating loops within each other that can also, yeah, reinforce certain things. We will have a little more of a look at that throughout this workshop today as well. Then the group in The Hague, who would like to say a few words about how it went from there for them.
Is iemand hier anyone who wants to tell a little bit about maybe the key insights of your group and come forward, and the microphone is here. Jennifer, jij zit echt lekker dichtbij. Hannah, I've sent you the picture of the two of the works of the two groups. Maybe you can put them in the board.
Yeah. That will take me a second, so you can already start sharing.
Ja, en dan kan... hier is de microfoon.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in a moment you will see, but we were looking at also the mental models of like groupthink, but also trust, low psychological safety, holding on to past events. Yeah, in Dutch you would say oud zeer. So the things that still hurt that happened in the past. Also motivation as one of the psychological models. And then we were looking at, okay, what is the structural components that would have the effect of, for instance, low psychological safety. So one of the things has to do with team composition. If there's a very homogeneous team composition, there's a lot of groupthink, and we also found that when there's a low psychological safety, it has to do with, for instance, not also being facilitated in open communication. So, for instance, there might not be a place to openly see what the other teams are doing. What then would lead to also lack of appreciation of other teams, but also feeling less appreciated for your own work, which then is linked again to the motivation. Also, there being, for instance, islands, you would say, like a culture where everyone feels like they're on their own island. And then we had a few things around that have to do with clarity or the lack of clarity of roles, which then influence motivation, but also there being not a clear a task set from the management, for instance, and then people starting to point at each other as accusing why everything is going wrong. So there could be management, could be other teams, and then that would, for instance, lead to conflicts, which is in the top event layer.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Suko, would you like to step forward?
Not so very well. I will try.
Yeah, if you can stand here, then Hanna's putting up on the board. And the microphone is here, Suko. If you can come. Okay. Suko, here's the microphone. Als je hier even komt staan. Because I saw you drawing all these arrows. That's why I selected you. Maybe just the key insights.
Key insights. Not enough. Not the interpretation is different. The people and to specialists and standalone, work more standalone. Innovations not enough. And then how do you say that? Vaste werktijden.
Fixed working hours.
Yeah, fixed working hours. Not enough team computation. The communication is so important. That's why we put it in the middle. On the other side, shared knowledge. We need more eigenaarschap.
Ownership.
Ownership, yeah. We need more ownership. But also versus team. We need also plan, do, check. And action. More education to innovate. Back to the core business. And we need also a common dictionary.
Yeah, common language. Yeah.
Common language.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Then, yeah, we are starting to get an understanding of the importance of being aware of how things are related to each other on these different levels. So that's really, one of the core ideas that we also work with in the systemic team development process that we are still further developing over time. So I will now briefly walk you through that process, and then we will also look into some steps in a bit more detail and practice with that together. So in general, this is a combination of a proven framework based on science and experience, making a kind of general systems map of what are all the things that need to be put in place for a team to work well together. And using that as a starting point, we then enrich that with the specific context of the teams we are working with. And the way that we're doing that is we start by collecting stories. So here we are working with a software called Mind Manager, where we have a certain format to ask a question and collect stories from team members and their experiences being in that team. This can be positive experiences, negative experiences. From there, we bring all of these stories together and make sense of them together. So we are categorizing what are challenges that are coming up more often, what are maybe low-hanging fruits that is being brought up. So things that can be resolved relatively easily versus topics that needs to be approached with a more long-term strategic approach. And working with stories in this way allows us to uncover these challenges that are specific to the team, but it also helps to make people feel heard. It helps to increase understanding between team members, and already helps to work on the trust, the psychological safety, and the connection between people. So yeah, based on that, we are identifying, okay, what are key challenges for the team? What are low-hanging fruit? And then we are locating that within the team map that we have created based on science and experience and the understanding of, okay, what is needed for the team. And we will have a more in detail look at, okay, what does this map look like in a moment. And then from there, together with the team, we are going through the map and these different variables and aspects that are important, and having a look where is the team currently at for these variables. So for each of them, we are saying, okay, here we're doing well. Another one we have to work on, and someone might be like a really, really critical. And then based on that, it allows us to actually set up a strategy on how to work on these challenges. So what should be addressed in sequence, what should be addressed in parallel, and how can we set up working groups, a regie group, and micro interventions to make that happen. Also that I will tell a bit more about the approach there in a moment. And yeah, from there, then each group can really zoom into the specific challenges and see what are the connections here, what is making this happen, and work with that together to find solutions to make improvements. And ultimately, we also want to support these teams to become learning teams, to become learning organizations, so that once they have made these improvements and have a strong foundation for their team, they are also able to keep that up and make adjustments over time as they become needed. So now I will introduce you to the map and how that is built up. And after that, there will be, again, an exercise for you to work with that and draw some of your own connections within that map. So the overall goal of the team is really to be able to continue continuous value for all stakeholders. And what that value is will, of course, depend on the specific team and what they are doing together. Then from there, we need to think about, okay, how do we make that happen? Here we need to think about, okay, how efficient and effective is each individual within the team at their work, as well as what does the teamwork efficiency and effectiveness look like for the team? And of course, these two influence each other. We need individuals that are good at their work to make the teamwork easier, but individuals also depend on good teamwork to get their work done. And this connects, as I said, to the ability to learn and adapt. If we're able to learn and adapt, we can improve efficiency and effectiveness of our work. But at the same time, we also need to be able to work well in order to be able to learn and to adapt. If we look at the individual level, we might think about the team members' strength in just smart working skills, as well as their strength in really the task-related skills that they have. For the teamwork efficiency, we want to think about the quality of cooperation, which is related to how involved are team members with the functioning and performance of the team, which in itself is related to many other things that you can explore together in a moment. So the exercise now to become more familiar with all the variables that are part of this general team map, I will walk you through here. So you see here, we have broken down the full map into a couple of areas. And then there are some gaps where you can still draw in the connections. So first, take a moment to read through the variables together, and then draw connection lines between the kind of entry and exit points of influence. So those are indicated by the triangles here. So if you click L on your keyboard, then you see here you can start to draw these connection lines. So for each of these triangles that are coming out, you can have a look at, okay, clarity of roles and responsibilities, for example. What does that influence? Or the clarity of relationships between goals, what is that related to? And then once you have worked on that, I will give you a certain amount of time to work on that. It might not be enough to draw all the lines. So after some time, I will reveal down here the finished map, so you can continue working with that in the next steps. So in step 2, I would like you to have a look at and think about if there are any other variables that might be relevant for some teams. So have a look at what's here and see, okay, is there anything else missing that you would like to add to this map that you think is important? And then in this final step, you can think a bit about, based on your experience, what can make some aspects especially challenging for specific teams, and add those details to the map. So to give some examples, we all went through this experience that a global pandemic makes meeting in person impossible, and that creates a special challenge for the quality of interpersonal relationships within the team. And we need to think about new ways to support that. Or there might have been a merger that creates an extra challenge for the trust between team members. Maybe 2 teams are being brought together that in the past were in competition with each other, and they have a different culture. And now we need to think about how can we work with that to still improve the trust between the team members. Or one specific example that we're working with for one team was that they had a specific challenge with the stability of team composition, because due to the context that they were in, there were really frequent changes in the planning that leads to frequent changes in team composition. So here you can see kind of the reinforcing loop that they found themselves within. So due to external factors, they needed to adapt their planning really frequently, which kind of reduced the quality of the planning and made it so that the stability of the teams was reducing, which leads to a decrease of the connectedness within the team, which then decreases the teamwork efficiency, which makes it even more difficult for them to reach their deadlines, which then leads to further needs to adapt the planning and further changes in team composition. So this made it more and more difficult for them to keep up this connectedness and to keep up their ability to make deadlines. So here we needed to think about ways to intervene in this loop to make the changes there. So 3 steps. First, to have a look at how are these variables connected that have the triangles. So if the triangle goes out, this is somewhere you should take a connection out of, and then these are the ones where the connection comes in. So have a look how you can draw these connection lines. From there, see, okay, are there any key variables missing? And think about what could make some of these variables specifically challenging for some teams, based on things that you might have experienced within teams in the past. Any questions for this exercise? I see still some more people coming back. So I was just starting to say that if you compare the different groups, you will see that between the groups, there will be some differences between how the relationships have been drawn. And that's completely fine. That doesn't mean one group did it right and the other group did it wrong, or that's the version below that we have worked on is more true than the others. What's really important here is to create more awareness and understanding for how all of these things can influence each other, and have that conversation with each other and see how in our team do we see how are things influencing each other? What does that mean for how we are setting up the structures and the mindsets and the rules for our system? How do, things that at the moment we might consider and work on more in isolation, how does that actually influence a lot more the bigger picture than we might be aware of now? So that's really what this map is meant to do, to become more aware of this interrelatedness, and then also to allow us to think about what we will look in the next step. If we want to start to make changes and to make improvements, where might it be best to start? What should we address first in order to make improvements in all the areas that are related to that? And for this exercise, I don't want to go group by group, but I'm just curious if anyone has any reflections or insights that came up throughout this exercise, or any questions that they would like to share. So feel free to just speak up if you have anything you would like to share about that.
We were discussing in group 2 the practicality of the model and what to do with your team. And two of us didn't have really the feeling that it could work within our current teams. The way it is presented like this, but we can easily adjust it and make more real life with examples that are playing within the team.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if the other groups are feeling or had the same thoughts.
Yeah, maybe what I can also say about that, as I mentioned here, what we are starting with are these stories and experiences that are really specific to the individual teams. And then from there, we are identifying, okay, what are the challenges that are top of mind for this team, so that then we can, exactly as you were saying, make this overview more relevant and specific to that specific team.
So I just was thinking about, whether we introduce this to the teams and the teams improve suddenly and there is a lot of cohesion and smoothly functioning. How sustainable it is unless we reinforce this again and again, have regular sessions. Will this sustain? Because that is again, people get involved at the event level and they get distracted, and unless you come back again and again and tell them that we have to, we are working towards something. Now, how does it work? How long this thing sustains? Also, second thing, one more question, like unless there is an organization support to achieve this, unless the organization is providing the safe space and kind of an environment to give that environment to the team to achieve the best for them, how is it possible? Unless the dynamics are the same there. So the organization is not changing, but it is expecting the teams to change. Those are the questions. So have you faced this with clients where the clients are ready to change their structures to, rather than telling you to change the teams without changing their own structures?
Yeah, so definitely together with World of Minds, we are often kind of working on multiple levels. We might come into an organization at the level of a team and with a team manager that just is looking for support to improve the functioning of their team. And we start with one team to collect the stories and to do some work. But then sometimes, we are able to then expand that to more teams and to a more organizational level, and to determine, okay, because as you were saying, there are certain things that are able to be changed within the team, but other things need to be addressed on a more organizational level as well. And for your first point, indeed, that is very important, as we also showed in kind of the process here, to not do this as a one-off. Okay, now we have fixed it and we can keep going. But yeah, we need to keep revisiting and monitoring these aspects to see how are they changing, what do we need to adapt, how can we keep these things up. So as we are working on how can we improve this for now, we will also help the teams to think about what do you need to put in place to make sure you're able to keep this up and adapt if needed. Any other observations or questions you would like to share? Maybe also from the group in The Hague.
Ja, die zullen niet gaan zitten. Oké.
Yeah, we were wondering, like, well, actually, we were discussing at one point, what do you take as a starting point for the systems map? So we started at the big question, but then we also found that there are like different ways to start in your map. So psychological safety was, for instance, the starting point. Also the clarity of roles. And we were also thinking, okay, if we would have placed the papers in a different order, would we have made different connections, or what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I'm sure if you move things around, kind of change the perspective, it will help you to see different and new connections. And as I mentioned at the beginning, yeah, they're not worse or better than the connections you saw before. Yeah, they will just be different. And then you can have the conversation about okay, why do I see a connection here? What does that look like in practice? And what does it mean for our team that this connection is taking place?
Trying on different perspectives at first, and then fixing the order in which you are placing the different clusters.
Yeah,
you're saying
we do that. Then I think it is time to take just a couple of minute break for everyone. And yeah, then after that, we will have a look at how can we go about making these changes in practice? What do the steps look like to make that happen? And Jere will show us a little bit of an example of what collecting these stories and working with these stories, what that can look like in Mind Manager. So I will put an 8 minutes break timer on the mirror board, and then we will continue in a little bit. Yeah, maybe I can first address some questions that came up in the chat. Someone was asking how much time was spent on creating this team map. Yeah, that is a little bit tricky to say, because with World of Minds, we've been working on team development and what is needed for that for many years. So yeah, that's kind of where the experience comes from. They did a lot of research as well into the science of team development. And then in the past couple of months, now we have brought that together in this systems map, and are still making changes to that and updating it. So every time we are working on this with a new team, we might observe new things that we want to add to the map that are also relevant for future teams. And yeah, Lucy is asking, do we use this map across all teams, or do we create a bespoke one for each team? So we use this kind of standard version of the map as a starting point, but then kind of enrich and make it custom to the teams that we're working with by collecting stories and having these conversations and workshops together with the team members to create a map that's really the most relevant for that specific team. So that said, I think, Jere, if you're ready to show us the example of what that looks like in Mind Manager to collect and to work with those stories.
Hannah just asked me to show you the first step of the approach that she outlined, which is the collecting of the stories. We're doing that in many teams as the first step, because then you get a sense of what's happening in a team. And we use a tool which is called Mind Manager. And actually the builder of the tool, which a company called Aludo, makes it possible also to be here today with us, because we were doing these kind of sessions now and then when we had time in between projects. And Aludo, Mr. Pascal Tijdgat from Aludo, who is in Brussels, he really liked what we were doing also with the tool set of Aludo, Mind Manager, and he is supporting these kind of knowledge sessions. So many thanks to him and his company. And one of the things that we do with his tool is we also built a little app to be able to collect stories and to interpret these stories. And we are also using AI now for that, if there are many, many stories. So like for the Ministry of Defense, we collected a larger number of stories than we're used to. As you can see in the screen, mostly it's about 20, 60, 80 stories. But then we did a couple of hundred, and then we also use AI to find these patterns in the stories. And so we can do this because we are asking for these stories in a structured way. So you can see here a team which had to build a car within a year. It's one of the universities in the south. It's called Solar Team Eindhoven. So this team is a relatively new team, and after a couple of weeks that they started, we start with collecting their stories, as you can see here, and they follow a certain structure. So I'll just show one of the stories. So we send out a form, and then people can individually fill in a number of stories, just one or more stories. So here you see the position of that person in the team, and he describes or she describes a certain situation and what he or she wanted to do in that situation, and why was it difficult, and what kind of solution or element of the solution this person filled in the form. And then with this tool, we collect all these stories and automatically transform that into this mind map, which makes it easier to go through the stories. And also put tags in the stories together. So when we're looking at these stories with the team, we're asking them to tag the stories. So what you see here is a lot of tags on the right side of the screen with the pitfalls. So you see here the difficulties. We've asked them to tag all the stories for that specific part of the story. And the same goes for elements of the solution. So now you can see that some elements have been mentioned a lot of times, some just one or two times, and this can help you to give meaning to these stories. And it can also help you to build a system map. So as you can see, we have many stories here. So it's quite a large number. And if you have to go through this in a normal document, it will cost you a lot of time and also makes it very difficult to see the connections. So now we have an easy way to structure information and look at all these stories and how they are connected. And the next step could be to make a system map or a story map, as we call it. And the interesting part of this tool is that it's the only tool that helps you to quickly structure information, but also to tag the information and to be able to filter the information. So it has a very powerful filter function, where you can just look at all the tags, and you can also filter a combination of tags. So for instance, you can ask, okay, which were the situations where people find it difficult, but they have to do with communication. And then you can take out that viewpoint, and then you can look at that specific point of view and discuss it with your team. And the other part that we find interesting is that the tool also makes it possible to export this map to an HTML map that you can open in your browser. So that's facilitating the use of not using the software. So people do not have to have the software to be able to look at the stories themselves and give meaning to them. Of course, they can use the story because you can use the mind map software for a lot of other objectives. But this is an interesting part because you can go in and you can just ask people to fill in the form for the stories, and then you can automatically transform it into a mind map, and they do not need to have the software. Any questions? No, Myra can't do this. Yeah, there's a question here in the group. The question is, can Myra do the same? And no, it cannot. So this is one of the reasons that we also use Mind Manager in combination with Miro, or sometimes just Mind Manager, because Mind Manager can also do a lot that Miro can't. But yeah, and depending on the situation, we either use both or just Mind Manager. Or if we do not collect stories and we do not want to filter, then we can just use Miro. Another question, Kieler?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm wondering, the methodology seems quite well done, but I'm curious about how do you make sure that people are kind of putting all the important information in there? And also all of the kind of labels that you have there. I can imagine for some people, it's quite some cognitive load in a way. How to make sure that it's well done in order for the whole procedure to go well?
Yeah, that's a good question, because not every team has such a level of psychological and social safety that people are willing to do this. So you can also do it more anonymously. And then we do not use the functions of the people, because then you can maybe see who this is, who put in the story. And we just label them story 1, story 2, story 3, and so forth. And then, of course, after that you've opened the form, one of the advantages is that because you can have the form open for, let's say, a couple of weeks, then people can add stories. So whenever they are in a situation that they think, oh, this would have been a good story to tell the other members of the team, then they can just fill it in at that time. So after a couple of weeks, you close the form and you say, okay, now we're going to look at all the stories together as a team. And yeah, if some of the members did not put in a story, then you can ask them to do that, because you're building psychological safety, asking for the stories and talking about the stories together. And more and more people will share these stories. Is that an answer to your question, Kirill?
Yes, I'm just I'm wondering how to use more kind of an intrinsic motivation there. But I think your answer is kind of satisfies me.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. Maybe I didn't hear it correct, but is it anonymous, or are the names known from the people who are delivering the stories?
You can do both.
Okay.
So you can, depending on the level of psychological safety in your team, you can either choose to do it anonymously, and then you will label the stories like story 1, story 2, and so on. But you can also put in the names. Here they choose to just put in the functions of every team member, but you can also choose to put in the names. If there's not enough psychological safety, then that's not a problem for the team. But in most cases, we can just put in the function of the person of that team.
Sidesh?
Any questions? I think Sidesh.
Yeah. So just one question as to how do you when people share the stories, right? So how do you make sure that they have in return they have got the feedback as to what has happened after the stories? Because in feedbacks, stories kind of a feedback, right? So we give lots of stories or tell what is happening, what we feel and all, but what is the impact of me sharing that story? What will I be told by the organizer what has happened because of my story? What impact has happened, or any changes have taken place?
Yes. So you're asking, Sidesh, what is happening after collecting the stories? Well, basically, that is what we did today. We're going to build a visualization of the stories. So we call it a story map or a system map. And then you have parts. You're building common ground for the team. So everybody feels heard that has delivered a story. But while time goes by, then more and more people will do so, and then you're building a visualization that you can use to communicate and learn. So what we did today is we saw a team map, which is a general map based on science and authors like Peter Senge and other people that have written about learning teams and learning organizations. So we can use that to maybe accelerate building a common understanding of how do you want to function as a team. But you can also just build a first story map of the stories and nothing more than that. And then ask people what is missing. What other connections should there be? So the next step is not writing big documents, which everybody has to read and try to visualize in their minds. We're just going to build a visualization together. So it's a co-creation process. Is that an answer to your question, Sidesh?
Yes.
Any other questions? We have a question here in The Hague. Look.
In this example, that artificial intelligence also being used?
Not in this example. So we've just been doing that in the last year and with large numbers of stories. Okay. And it's really interesting because sometimes it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we've encountered is that a lot of organizations think that they do not have time enough. So they do not take the time. And so they get into loops, in circles, they're reinforcing loops, and they have maybe a temporary solution. So they're symptom fighting and they're sub-optimizing. But once they start doing this and they're seeing the interconnectedness of everything that makes a team a great team, then they are more and more motivated to finish that and use the visualization to grow as a team and to build a better team. Okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Hannah?
Yeah, I think then I will take over again for the last few steps of the session today. So let me share my screening again. So based on the stories, we will, as we said, kind of enrich and customize this general map. So you see here, kind of place within the map, okay, what are challenges that are specific to our team that come out of the stories, and where within the map are they located, as well as some low-hanging fruit, easy to solve issues, and where they are located. And we will also, with the team, go through these variables together and have that discussion of, okay, where are we doing well and which ones do we really need to work on? And then based on that analysis, then we can really go into together building a roadmap and deciding, okay, in what sequence do we want to start addressing these variables that need improvements, and how do we want to go about that? And yeah, for that, we have one more little exercise. So here, for this exercise, we're kind of making the assumption that we have a team that basically has challenges with everything. So all of these things need to be worked on, need to be improved. And then, of course, we need to ask ourselves, okay, where do we start? What needs to happen first? What needs to happen in sequence? What can happen in parallel? What can these steps look like? So here, this is an individual exercise. In person, you will also get these squares to work with. Just a quick exercise to have a look at when you see these different points to work on. For example, we want to work on improving the clarities of roles and responsibilities. Where within the process should that happen? Do we need to start by first working on psychological safety? Do we want to start by working on smart working skills? Yeah, where do we need to start? What happens after each other? What happens in parallel? So each of you, you can just grab one of these frames in Miro to work with. If you chose one, just put your name on it with a sticky note so everyone else knows that that one is taken. And just for a few minutes, have a look at these elements, move them around and see in what kind of sequence do you think should these things be addressed based on your thinking and more understanding of how all of these things are related to each other. So I will just give you a couple of minutes to think through that yourself. And then after that, we will share a little bit from our perspective how we think such a standard roadmap would look like, and then talk about, again, how do we then customize that for the specific teams, and how do we work on that together. Then I will briefly share with you what our standard roadmap looks like. And again, here, this is kind of the standard, assuming a team needs to really work on everything. But of course, we will then customize this depending on what the needs are of that specific team, as well as what are maybe additional challenges that are specific to the team that also need to be addressed within the roadmap. So you can later have a look here at the details of how we have arranged these elements. And then this is also where we like to use Mind Manager to build up this roadmap together, because it becomes really easy to kind of drag and drop things into place, to add additional tasks, and to even in a way kind of track where we're at with these tasks that are part of these steps. And the way we go about working on this together with the team is, we kind of have 3 to 4 groups of ways of working. We have the kind of core group that is really in charge of keeping the overview of all the things that are going on and making more high level decisions. Then we have team sessions, so workshops where the whole team and the core group are coming together to work on certain aspects together. And we have the working groups. So they really zoom into these more specific challenges and together analyze what is needed here and then take these steps together. So for example, a working group could be around clarifying the team purpose and goal. And then at some point, this group might decide, okay, we need also a team session to discuss this together. They are the ones who provide the input for that team session and who then will also process the output of that. And again, there might be a more active phase during which this working group is working. But then after that, they also need to continue to monitor the aspect they were working with. And if needed, reactivate the group to continue to make improvements there. And then we also have what we call kind of improvement impulses. So those are not ongoing processes, but there can be more one-off activities that are taking place. So that could be a training around that focuses specifically on discussing psychological safety and what that means for the team. That might be a workshop to address like a specific disagreement or a specific tension that has come up during the group. And then we organize a one-off workshop to address that together. So those improvement impulses also happen in parallel to this whole process. And the working groups are in charge of kind of signaling to the core group, we might need an impulse like that. Can we organize an event? And the core group has to then decide, okay, how can we fit these into the whole roadmap and how can we make that happen? And then as part of supporting this process, we have a couple of things in our toolbox. So that can be, we maybe need a value stream or impact mapping for one of these steps. There might be a stakeholder map being created or a process or information flows. You maybe remember, these were all aspects around gaining clarity around what is the impact we want to create, what are the goals around that, so we can map that out, as well as the clarity of information flows can help to visualize that. We have worked with knowledge management in the past, have some ready to go psychological safety training. So there's a lot of things that we can use to support these processes when needed. And then we will, together with the team, with the core group, we will fill in the details of the roadmap and of what are the working groups that are needed and how do we approach this, depending on the specific context and challenge of the team that we are working with. Are there any remaining questions?
Yeah, Gerson.
Where are the leverage points in the roadmap?
So for each of these for these aspects that we're looking at, for example, psychological safety, we are going to want to really look deeper and think about what is currently maybe hindering psychological safety, what are the reinforcing or balancing loops that are taking place there. And then from there, from that deeper understanding, is that where we can then start looking for leverage points and how we can intervene in these places. So that will be partially part of what the working groups are doing, is to really get a deeper understanding of why are these things, these variables that are important for the team, why are we currently at the level that we are at, what are the patterns that are taking place there, and then from there, how can we intervene? Jelle, do you have any final words you would like to share?
Yes, if people are more interested in also looking through a case that we did, We have permission to discuss one case where we looked at the whole organization of an energy company, and we can walk you through the case if you want to look at how we what kind of tools we used, how we used story mapping, but we also did interviews in that specific case. And we also have a case of an NGO which had to operate in different countries which had quite a complex playing field. And we have a case which we can discuss, which is more about team development of one team. And yeah, some cases we used AI, other cases we used other tools from the toolbox that Hannah just showed you. If you want to go into more detail, to maybe make a plan for your own team or for the whole organization, then we can help you, because we've also looked at all the research on learning organizations, and we built a map of all the elements that you can influence if you really want to build a learning organization. So we can also use that knowledge.
Sidesh, you have a question?
I just have a quick question as to what about the budget? Because at the end we are considering so many interventions as to how then we have to allocate budget accordingly, and we can't possibly do all kinds of interventions because at the end we will come up with many interventions, and how that is taken care of, and whether only working on those leverages and interventions will make any change desired outcome if the budget is not allocated that much.
Yeah, so maybe one other important thing to say, as we are working on setting up this roadmap for the team, one important step there is to also kind of take inventory of what are all the processes and projects that are currently already running within the organization, because often that's also kind of one of the issues, that there are so many kind of improvement projects happening in parallel. They don't really know about each other. So that's part of what we are helping these teams and organizations with, to bring that all together in one place and see, okay, how are these things influencing each other, and what is missing to add on to what we are already doing now, to make sure, we are not paying double and kind of wasting efforts there. Then,
maybe, Hannah, maybe to name a figure of a budget. The case of the energy company, we can go through that so you have a bit of a sense of the work that we did, which was a budget of around 35,000 euros. And one of the members of the board was an ex-consultant of Accenture. And he told us that if they would have done it with Accenture, they would have had to pay four times the budget that we asked them. And he also told us, and he put this on paper, so if you want to read it, then we can give it to you. He also told us that Accenture was not capable of doing this kind of work. So if you find that interesting, then we can show you the case, and we can show you the budget and what kind of work has been done for that budget.
Yeah, so any more detailed questions that you have around all of this, definitely, send us a message, and we'll get in contact with you. And I hope overall you took some insights from the workshop around really looking more for what are these interconnections between things, how are things influencing each other, how can we bring different efforts together, and bring that back to helping the teams that you are part of. And then thank you all for participating. If you keep an eye on LinkedIn on Systems Innovation, we will be organizing more events like this in the future. You're always welcome to join. And I'm always looking forward to seeing familiar faces again at these events. Then thank you all, and I will close the call here for now.
Thank you very much, Hannah, for all your work. See you later.